Okay, I'll go through basic stuff we've discussed before and get into advanced topics. If you can remember, we had defined directives before, right? Like simple ones. We had ngIf, which is a structural directive. And also ngFor, which is also another structural directive. So apart from these two, we also had ng class and ng style. So these are not structural directives, but more normal directives. So whenever we use star, it's a structural directive, while using just ng class or ng style, these are directives as well. The main difference between ngIf and ngFor and or a structural directive and a regular directive is structural directive actually changes the structure of the HTML. It doesn't just change the color or background color or any other style, but it also makes the element appear or disappear. So that is why it's a structural directive. So I'll briefly explain what we did before, and also explain how can we create our own directive. Anyways, so we have an example here. Let me open and ngFor. Okay, anyways, this is a simple Angular application where I have, a button which would, once I click on it, it would just change the only odd variable I have here. Initially it's false, then I would change it to true. And depending on that, I would either show only odd or not. So once this builds, we will see that. And we would try to, or I'll show you basic example. Even before doing that, let me create another. And among these, there are numbers are 1, 3, and 5, and even numbers are 2 and 4, right? I mean, this is not the best way of actually getting odd or even numbers, but for now, we will just do this. And our local host 54257. So once I do that, right now it's not doing anything except it's just showing only odd. But let's change that to do something more than that, like actually showing our list item. Anyways, in here, if you guys remember, we can actually use a ngFor, right? And right now, I have want to show odd numbers, so I'll just grab that and I'll loop through them of odd numbers, or simply call it number of odd numbers. Okay, and that is all I have. And if I do that, and also let me print the number. Okay. And initially it's just showing, but even then I don't have, it's not toggling between even and odd numbers. The best way of doing that again is I can use a ngIf, right? If you guys remember, ngIf is for showing based on a particular condition. So ngIf, and I only want to show the values when the value is odd. So I can simply say this, but you see it doesn't show anything. If you actually look at the console, it says it shows us an error. Can't have multiple template bindings on one element. It's simply saying I cannot have both ngFor and ngIf. So one of the easiest ways of solving that is just using a div. So I will use a div, and here I would have an ngIf. I would simply say when it's only odd, then I would actually show this value. And once I click on that, it's showing us odd numbers. We can also have something similar for even numbers, right? So I would create another div, and I would simply say, but here I don't want to show, if this is false, right? I don't want to show odd numbers, but I want to show even numbers. So I would simply say even numbers. That is all I have to do. And once I do that, initially it is showing us even numbers. Once I click on it, it's showing the odd numbers. This is clear, right, for you guys? Do you guys have any questions? I'm simply showing even or odd numbers based on a condition. Lakshmi, you have a question?
Sorry, Anvesh, I don't have any question.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's as simple as that. So I'm if it's true, I'm just doing this. If it's false, I'm showing this one. Anyways, apart from that, I will also go through. We also had a ng what do you call class, right? So let me define a particular style for odd numbers. Whenever we have odd numbers, I want to have a background color of, let's say, red. And in order to display a color based on a particular class, I can simply define it as ng class. Another thing you have to observe is, since this is not a structural directive, I wouldn't use star. Rather, I would specify it more square brackets like an attribute. Anyways. And based on a particular condition, right, I can either, I want to show this or not. So I'm saying ng class and equal to odd, right? I have defined a class here. I want that to be odd when it is simply only odd. Codes are not supported. Okay. Okay. Another way of doing this is I would simply take the number and so this is a simple notation to find out if a number is odd or even. In this case, I'm just checking if a number is odd. Still missing something. Okay. Can you guys see if I'm doing something wrong here? Actually, yeah, nothing. Okay, it's just showing fine. Anyways, if you remember, I'm just going through what we have discussed in the previous classes, where we have a ng class. And similarly, I can also have a ng style, where I would particularly define the color of the background or the color of the particular element based on a particular condition, right? I'll simply say ng style. Again, I can have a similar thing, but here I would explicitly mention the style instead of, or I can simply define a color. Again, I can take this condition again, and if it's true, I would want the color to be yellow. Otherwise, I want it to be black. Anyways, so it's just showing black because. Okay. Any questions? We can have something same again for even colors as well, or even numbers as well. But instead of saying not equal, I would simply say equal to. And don't want it to be odd, but let's define something for even. Dot even, and background color. Want it to be, let's say this. Okay. Anyways, so is this clear? Any questions about anything? This is what we've discussed in the previous classes as well. So if it's, yeah, Lakshmi, you have a question.
What is this ng style? I mean, you have given the condition yellow or black. How does it execute?
So based on this condition, if if the remainder is 0, right, I would get yellow. If not, otherwise black. That is all it says here.
I mean, if it's if the number is the numbers are odd, it will become black.
Number. Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, yellow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing. But I think I have to use a lowercase. See, that is why you may not be seeing the changes. So let me change it back to smaller. It looks weird, but let's say green. Okay. Show odd numbers have a background color of yellow. Okay. Any questions about the basic attributes we discussed these before? Okay. Anyways, so using these, right? Let's say ngf for ng for or ng class or ng style, we can actually do a few things, right? But let's say we have a requirement where we had to define our own directive, and that is what we would be doing right now. And let's create a folder for this directive, and I'll call it basic highlighting. And what we're trying to do in this particular directive is, I just want to change the color to a particular color, whatever I mentioned, whenever I move the mouse over that particular part. Let's say if I move my mouse over, let's say 2, it should turn blue, or when I move over 4, it should turn blue. But when I move back, it should turn again to the regular color. So in order to define that, again, Angular has built-in way of doing that. So let me stop this first. And I've created a folder just for that. And in order to create a directive, again, ng generate directive. Okay, I can do that, or I can simply say, again, we can use the shortcuts. ng, g is for generate, d is for directive. Let me create something called basic highlighting. Okay, once I do that, it should automatically generate. Okay, my bad. Let me delete these. And probably also from here. So I've created a folder. I just want to navigate to that folder first. CD, source, app, and basic highlighting. Right. And here I will say ng gd again. So it should create it down here. And it did that. So if you see it here, okay, should have probably explained it another way. But anyways, so once we say nggd, it created our own directive. Again, if you look down here, the difference between a component and a directive is one of the most important thing is instead of saying a component here, it would say a directive. If you look at a regular component, it's importing it from component, Angular core. It's declaring that as a component, right? We have to have this attribute. And here I would simply say directive. Apart from that, the selector is still the same. So if I want to use it at some other place, I should be using this selector. So I would simply specify add basic highlighting, right? As of now, it doesn't do anything, right? This is a basic code. I don't have anything in here. But let's say I want to change the color of a particular element whenever I specify this directive to, let's say, blue. Or so I have the constructor defined here, and here I have to pass a particular, or this is called injecting, and I would be discussing about this again in a later class. But we have to inject a particular property here, and let's say I want to inject, and this element ref, right, is of type element ref. And I also need to add that to the import. Okay. And what this is, whatever from wherever I'm using basic highlighting, like let's say I'm trying to use this attribute, or sorry, not attribute, but the directive. I'm trying to use this directive, let's say on a paragraph down here, right? So element ref defines that paragraph. So wherever I'm trying to use that, that is the element ref. As simple as that. So in order to actually change the style or change anything for that particular tag element, I have to initially get access to that element, right? So this is how we would get access to that using element ref. Anyways, so and the best way of actually doing this or changing the background color or doing something is actually doing it on init. If you guys remember from the previous class, this is one of the life cycles. Okay, I need to implement that. And here I can actually change the color of that. And again, this is how we would change it. First, I need to get access to that element by saying element ref and getting access to the native element and dot. It doesn't show anything, but let's say I want to change the background color to something. So I would simply say style. I need to get access to the style attribute and the background color. And I can change anything basically in this way. I need to get element ref, native element, style, dot. I can, again, if we go to CSS, you can see I can get access to background color, color, content. I can access any of these properties. But let's say for simplicity, I'm trying to just change the background color. Let's say I want that to be blue. Okay. So few things again to remember. First, we have to create this directive, right? The best practice again is to do it in the same way as we do it for a component using a separate folder. Another thing is we have to, since this is a directive, I mean, by default, when you say nggd and this one, would automatically add these, everything by default. But it's important that you remember, I need to have a directive, and also the selector name is what we would be actually using it as a directive name. So I would be using basic highlighting. And in order to get access for that, any element gets changing, like for example, trying to change paragraph, or it can be li, div, anything else, I have to access that using this element ref. So I need to inject that. Inject instant. I'll explain that again later in a later class. It's a completely different topic, but I just have to specify that in the constructor. I have to pass that as a property down in the constructor. And that is the element ref. And the best practice to change it is using the ng on in it. And here I would get access to the element ref, native element, and whatever style I want to change. It can be color, background color. It can be any, can be font size. It can be any of those properties. But anyways, so in order to use this, the first thing, again, it should be included in the app module.ts. Again, since I'm using this nggd, it's automatically included down here. And also the import. Okay, coming back to where we want to change it. Let's say I have so from the basic highlighting directive. And here I have to specify that particular whatever I have specified in the selector. So this is what I would be. It's similar to components, right? If I create a component, if I want to use it at a different component, I would simply go to the selector, see what it's named as, and that is what I would be using. It's the same for the directive. So I would just grab that and put it here. And this is a simple example. Again, we would go through different ones. Okay, let's see my end user. Let me actually do that from, so I don't have to do it. So I'm actually doing it in command prompt here. So I don't have to start it here again. Anyways. Okay. Okay. And you see the background color for this change to blue, even though I'm just using this one thing. So it's similar to what ng class and ng style, but I don't have any way of changing the value. It's just basically, it doesn't do much. Okay. Any questions so far about any of these? Okay.
Anvesh, you've given the attribute element ref, right?
Sorry.
For constructor.
Okay, constructor. This constructor, right?
Yeah, constructor. Yeah. What is that attribute?
I mean, are you asking what constructor is?
No. The
Or,
attribute element ref, private element ref is there, no?
mm-hmm. That is the actual element where I'm trying to use the directive. So in this example, okay, let's see. I mean, if you have any questions as such, like what are we trying to use, always use console.log, right? I would simply say I want to get access to this dot element ref. Okay, and if I want to do that, just do that, and let us go back here, refresh it, and if you see, it printed that, right? It says element ref is nothing but T, right? Paragraph. If I have this, let's say on a different tag, let's say, have so many tags, let's say bold, right? This is bold, basic highlighting. Okay, my spelling. Okay, and let's say I'm trying to use the same thing here. Okay, and let's delete it for the paragraph. And now, if you see, what is the element ref? It's B, right? Because I'm trying to use that on the bold. If I'm trying to use it at both places, again, you can see it printed both B and C. So it's basically whatever tag or element where I'm trying to use this. That is what the element ref is. Is that clear?
Okay, Anvesh, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're not sure about something, you can just simply use console.log and you can actually view it in the DevTools.
Okay.
Or you can also, I mean, go to our and put a breakpoint down here. So once this page loads, and it would hit that breakpoint, and now I can see what the element ref is. In this case, the first time it's a paragraph, and it probably would come here again. And in the second case, it's a bold. So anyways, there are different ways of finding that out, figuring it out, using console.log or using sources and a breakpoint. This is what I was explaining you in the how to debug,
Yeah, the breakpoints.
Yeah. So colors are so bad. So let us also change something else. Let's say the color should be red and blue and red became pink. But anyways, So that is what I have. So this is like a basic directive where it doesn't do much, right? Just basically uh, gets the element, changes the style. Okay, and let me actually. So apart from using doing in this way, there are also a few other ways of doing this. So first, let me. So right now we are only seeing like basic highlighting, right? Let me also create another folder and let's call it as better highlight. Okay. CD better highlighting and ng. Let me create another directive gd and let's call it. It did create us two files down here again. It created the selector constructor and it also added that to the app module. So in case if you do it automatically, it would add it to module. If you create manually, it wouldn't add it to module. You have to remember going here and changing that. Anyways, there is another way of actually doing this one using another. So even in this method, okay, earlier we've explained using just grabbing that element ref and changing it. And here, we wouldn't actually do that. Still, even in this method, I'm just showing you different ways of actually using directives. The first one is using element ref and using native element and changing it. And here, I would show a different way of doing it. Okay, still I have to access element ref. Add that to Angular core. And there is something called renderer. And that is what we would be using in this example. Okay. In order to use them, again, I have to inject them to the constructor. So I would just add values or properties and what is the type. Again, let us also implement ng on init. And here, let us try to change the background color. Or so in order to use renderer, okay, this is how we would do that. So this dot again, renderer dot. Here, earlier we had to access that property. I see someone saying me. Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't see that. Okay. And here we are just accessing the native element and changing the style. But in here, I can simply say set style. Again, I need to get access to whatever element I'm trying to change. In this case, again, it's an element ref, right? Still have to change this. So this dot element ref dot native element, I'm trying to change that. And I have to pass a few other properties. So the first one would be what I'm trying to change. The second one would be what style. And finally, so here I have to specify what I'm trying to change. Let's say I'm trying to, again, change the background color. I would simply say background color. And let's say the color to blue. Or since we had blue before, let's say color would be green. So that is all. That is the main difference between the one we had before and one we have now. Nothing else. So renderer dot set style, I have to specify these properties. Earlier, I'm saying element ref, native element, and accessing those properties. Anyways, let us see. Let us also include this one here. So since I'm having basic highlighting for the first one, let me change the bold to have better highlighting. Okay. Any questions about what we're doing? This is bold, basic highlighting, or not basic, but let's say better highlighting. Yep. Any questions? Okay. The syntax is, again, it's using renderer. The main difference between using renderer and using the, just using the element ref is element ref would work for about 90% of the cases. In case it doesn't work for you using this one, right? You can always use the renderer. There are certain cases where this may not work. So I would actually use renderer because this would always work for 100% of the cases. Okay. If you guys don't have any questions, okay. Next thing is, earlier when I specified this, when I was actually talking to you, what I want to do with this directive is I want to hover or move my mouse over a particular element. I have to change the color to a particular color. Once I move out, it should change that, right? As of now, we are not doing anything as such. We are just changing the style or the background color of it. So in order to actually make it more event-based, right? Going on here is an event like mouse over, and moving out is a mouse leaving event. So in order to do that, there's something called host listener. So I can define that host listener here. Again, I have to import that, make sure I have to import this here. And here I would define when is it actually trying to listen. So simply I would simply say mouse enter. Whenever this is entering, I want to do something. Okay. And here, since I'm trying to access it for an event, I have to simply specify. I have to, again, pass this parameters. Again, this is all syntax. If you guys don't remember, try to look it up. But anyways, the important thing is we can add something called a host listener and define different, depending on different events. And I can have a mouse enter. Similar to that, I can also have a mouse leave, right? I need to change this mouse leave. Okay. Again, in here, I just want to change the background color depending on when the mouse enters or leaves. So again, to set the style, I can still use the renderer, right? When the mouse enters, I want the color to be, let's say, yellow. And when the mouse leaves, the color should be still green. So that is all. So using host listener, I can define different events, and I would just change the color, or I can change any property. I'm just using background here, color here as a simple example. So you can change any of the properties, like for example, font, let's say size, family, weight. There are a ton of CSS styles. I can change anything. I'm just choosing to change this one. Is this clear, or do you guys have any questions about what host listener is? Okay. Yeah.
No, Amish.
Okay. So I'm creating an event here, or capturing the event, and depending on that, whatever I want to do, I can do it in that particular function or in that method. Anyways, let's go back here. So when I move my mouse over here, changes the color to yellow. When I move out, it's green again. I can define anything as well. So initially it's green, right? When the particular element loads, after that, when I mouse enter, the background color is yellow. And when the mouse leaves, background color is green. Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, so far we've only seen, right? Let me go back to our component HTML. So if you see down here for ng class or ng style, I'm defining, or I'm accepting very different values, right? Depending on a particular condition, I want to set the color to be green or black. Basically, I'm accepting something, right? I'm accepting an input here, right? But in here, in app better highlighting, I'm not accepting any input, but rather I'm just changing the style to be static, right? Here, I'm not doing anything, but just having a static values here. And in order to accept a particular value to make it more dynamic, I can also do that by using, you guys used this before. So for example, when I have to communicate between different components again, between, let's say, parent and the child, right? Or different components, component one and component two. Right. Right. In order to accept something from component one to component two, if you guys remember, we did something called X input, right, before. If you remember this. And in order to do it the other way around, we were using event listeners or events. Anyways, it's something similar for directives as well, similar to what we had for a component. So I would just simply define an input. And in here, I would define what the name of the property. For example, let's say I want to have a default color. And let's define it as a string. Again, I have to include the input in the Angular core here. So let's say input. Let's say I want to define this default color to be green. But if I want that to be changed by a particular user, right, I want to accept another value. So let's say change color to whatever this specifies. Initially, let me define it as to be, again, yellow. Okay. And so in order to change that, there is something called, similar to host listener, there is something called host binding. I want to, let's say, change the background color. So I have to define what I want to change in the host binding. Let's say I want to change the background color, style.background color. I'll show you guys again. Once this is done, it could make more sense. And in the listener, all I have to do is I have to background color. Again, first thing is I have to accept that whatever value the user specifies, right? And second thing is I have to define a host binding. And here I will simply specify whatever color I want to change it to. So when the mouse enters, I want to change the color. When I want that to be a default color. Let me call it default color. But it may look similar to what we are doing before, right? We are just setting the renderer set style to the color. Here, again, if I go back to, it's still green and yellow. Also, it's green and yellow as before, but the difference would be when we go back to our bigger highlighting, I can actually define, the attributes here. Oops. So whatever inputs I'm accepting here, right? Default color or change color, I can pass in as attributes down here. So in our case, or sorry if I'm going too fast. Do you guys have any questions about what we're trying to do in here? So first thing, we are defining the inputs, whatever we want to change. I should have explained this one before, but apart from doing the way we're doing with renderer, there is another way of doing it using host binding. So it's similar to renderer where there are three different ways. Again, if you go back here, first one is accessing the element, saying the native element dot style dot background color. That is one way of doing it. Second way of setting a style or changing something is using this dot renderer. Okay, this is a second way of doing it. And finally, the third way of doing is using a host binding. Okay, this is used to set style. Okay, so three ways. Using element ref. Okay. Second one is renderer. Third one is host binding. Again, all of these can be used for the same purpose, and depending on this would work for. There are some edge cases where this may not work. Sorry, 90% will work. This would render using, this would work 100% of the time. Again, you might be wondering why this wouldn't work, why this wouldn't work 10% of the time. If you guys remember, or I don't remember if I've explained this, if you see, it's creating our own tags down here, right? App root, or if I create any other components, right? I would have this is not standard HTML, right? And if this is not a standard HTML, we cannot always access the style or any other default, whatever other elements have. Like for example, paragraph can have a background color, right? Other elements, bold can have a background color, image, or any of those can have those styles defined. But for the ones we are defining, like app root, or if I define another component, they may or may not have those attributes again, style or font size or anything. So in those cases, since this is not a standard DOM, will work for all DOM elements. And since those are not standard DOM elements, those cases it would not work again using this dot element ref dot native element element ref dot native element. But renderer, on the other hand, this is an Angular way of doing it. So since we are creating Angular components, Angular knows where it needs to update it. So this would work most of the time. And similarly, host finding would also work. Coming back to our example. Okay, so there are three different ways of actually changing the style. This renderer, host binding, and in host binding, I have to define what I want to change, and I can try to access that wherever, any other place. So do you guys have any questions about any of those, or is it confusing?
It's good. It's good, Anush.
Okay. So, and in order to accept any particular value, again, we would do it in the standard way as we were doing before. When we are trying to communicate between different components, we would use input or event listeners. Again, here, I would simply, in order to accept a particular color, right, I would define the inputs here, default color and change color. And here, I'm just changing the background color using the values, whatever I'm defining here. So let us go back to our app component.html. Here, the value I want to pass, I can pass here. So since we have the default color to be green and change color to be yellow, we can define a different color. Let's say I want default color to be gray. Gray, maybe gold. Do we have gold? Okay. So let's say I want to default color to be gray, and going back over here, the change color to be gold. So now it's not just static where we define a color and we try to change it, but it's more dynamic where we can actually specify the values. And that would change. And for some reason, this is not working.
Maybe gold is not there. Try magenta.
Gold is the color. Okay, magenta. Nope. Missing something. Sometimes it may need this one. Would that be the case? Yeah, it just needs to specify whatever value I'm trying to pass here. Since I'm trying to get a string, again, I have to specify it using quotations. Anyways, so initially it's gray, now it's magenta. Or so yeah, any questions? Okay. So far, again, we have seen, let us go back to our example again, right? We have ngIf and ngFor, right? Those are structural directives. So when we have a structural directive, it could actually change the, not just the style, but it can make the HTML page different, right? Not just, it would either remove or add the particular tags, right? And we have ng class and ng style, but if you see all the examples we have so far, whatever we are discussing, those are not structural directives, right? It only changes the color, or I mean, not necessarily color, but it would only change the style of this particular tag. And we can also create a structural directive again using using our custom directives again. So let us actually do that. Let me create another folder down here. Let's call this let me call it change, and directive. And here, let me create another directive. So simply ng-gd again. Let me call it as change directive. So what we're trying to do here is similar to what ngIf or ngFor does. So instead of not just changing the style, we also want to add few elements to our HTML page or delete few. Again, going back here. I've changed directive. And the important thing to notice down here though is first things first. Again, we have to inject few things to our constructor. As we've done before in better highlighting or in basic highlighting, we are injecting element ref, and in this case, in better highlighting, we are also injecting element ref and also renderer too. Again, right? So similar to that, we have to inject few things to our change directive whenever we are trying to make changes to a particular like we want to either display or hide something. These are the things we have to pass or so the first one is a template ref. There we are trying to change. We are passing an element ref. Here it's a template ref. It's of type again template ref. and this can accept any. Again, make sure you add it to import. So usually, initially, if you see import directive, it doesn't add that. I'm trying to add that by going here. You see the bulb, you click on that. I can simply say add template ref. So this is one way of doing it. If you don't find that, or you can simply type it here. I like doing it in the short way, so I would just hit that and add it. Anyways, so apart from that, so template ref is what I want to change, and let's say I have a paragraph down here. And in here, let me say I have some value, right? This some value is the template ref. Template is what I want to add or delete. Okay, and P is again, it's a ref. It's a view container ref. So there are two things I want to pass. What do I want to add, or what do I want to change, and where do I want to change? Okay, so this is what I want to add or delete, and this one is where do I want to do it. Again, showing us this example in here, some value is a template ref. And P, paragraph, and here, this one, probably more, is a view container ref. So where do I want to change it, and what do I want to add or delete or make the changes? Any questions about that? Okay. Yeah. Another thing we do here is similar to what we have in the highlighting. I still need an input, which the one which I want to change, right? Okay, it's not. Wait a minute. Here, select manually. I want to set. Do you guys know what set and get is? Right.
Setter and getter methods.
Yep. You know what that is, right? Like set is to set the
Giving
value. Get is to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, set is to giving the inputs,
Mm-hmm.
and get is like the result, retrieving the result,
Yep.
or
Yep. That is all.
printing printing out the result.
Yep. So set is where we try to initialize or set the value for a particular whatever variable we have. Get is to get back the value or trying to retrieve the value. So we have to do something similar here. Since we're actually trying to change the value of view containers, that is what we're trying to set. Another important thing you have to notice is input set, and we have to define a variable which is the same as a selector, since that is what we are trying to set in here. And let's say we have a condition. Based on that particular condition, Boolean, if it's true or false, we either want to add that template ref or delete the template ref, whatever it is. So in our example, I've shown you something simple as paragraph, right? But it can be anything, and we'll see here. So let's say if the condition is true, right? Usually, whenever the condition is true, we want to add something, right? Again, it doesn't have to be in this way. I can pass anything again. I don't have to always pass Boolean. I can pass integer or a number or a string or anything. I can do anything down here. To keep things simple, I'm just passing a Boolean down here. And when it is true, all I do is view container.ref. I'm trying to create embedded view. I'm just trying to create. What am I trying to create? Whatever I have as template, right? Let's say this dot template ref. So create embedded view adds whatever I have in this template ref to the view container ref. So if I'm using it in case of a paragraph, some value would be the template ref, and I'm trying to add it to the paragraph down here. So that is all it's doing here. It's trying to access that view container and adding this to the template ref to this view container. Okay. So if it's false, right? I don't want to show it, but I want to clear it. So dot clear. Any questions about any of these? Again, two things we have to pass. What do I want to add and where do I want to add? And here I have to set an input. Again, it should be same as the selector name here. So since I have app change directive, I will define that here. And I can pass any condition down here or anything else. And if the condition is true, I can add, again, it doesn't have to be this way. It can also be the other way around. If the condition is false, maybe I want to add this. So is this clear? Any questions? Okay. Since again, this is a structural directive, right? Earlier I was also specifying whenever we use a structural directive, I need to use a star, right? And if I want to use the same thing down here, okay, let's see, let us use it for the same example we were trying to use. We have when I have this, but when I click on show odd numbers, it's showing me. But once I click this back, it goes back to whatever even numbers we had. So let us implement the same thing, but using not ngIf, but using our, what do we have here? The name. Oops. Okay. I don't need this. Do I need this? All right. Okay. Sorry. So instead of using ngIf, all I would do is use app change directive. That is the only difference. So I would have an app change directive, only odd. This is all I have to do. Again, I'm not using ngIf. I'm using our own created directive here, and it's functioning the same. Again, if you want to understand what is going on in detail, I would advise you to either use breakpoints down here. Let me go to our source, change directive. I would put some breakpoints down here. Not for this constructor, sorry. And we can, let me, okay, it's checking for the condition initially, it's false, so it will come to the next one. Okay, and when I click that, again, it's true. So it's trying to add this template. If you want to see what the template is again, I can hover over that and see what the values are. Again, it is not clear here, but if you want to know more about this one, again, I can go to console, right? Do that and expand on this one till we see what we actually are looking for. So the parent element in this case is UL as again, we have child nodes, the list 57. But anyways, if you want things to be clear, again, I would advise you to put breakpoints down here. To add breakpoints, it's as easy as clicking here. Or you can also put a console.log here and see what this .view container ref is. You can simply say ref is, and also view template ref. And let's start template ref. And go to console.log, it would print us all those values here. Right now it's saying it's an object, but if you want in detail again, you can put breakpoints down here again, check it out. Anyways, so it's as simple as what we have here. In order to access those two, again, I need to pass two parameters, what value I want to add, and where am I changing it. So any questions about any of these attributes? Sorry, not attributes, directives. And the structural directives. We have discussed how to create both structural directives and regular directives, our own custom-made ones. So any questions about anything? Okay, cool. So, yep. So that's how far we got. Just checking if I have anything left. And in the next class, I would talk about routing or routing. It's another important thing to make note of or to understand, because as of now, we only have just one app component page, and that is where we are doing everything. But in the next class, I will be teaching about routing. Routing defines how to navigate have multiple pages. Right now, we only have one page, app component.html, and that is where we make all the changes. But routing is another important concept, which would where we would go in detail about how to deal when we have more than one page. Anyways, if you guys don't have any questions, I will send you an assignment in WhatsApp, and I'll talk to you guys on Thursday. Again, Thursday is Shivaratri, I think. Will you guys be able to attend that, or should I go through this tomorrow? Any advice or any input from you guys?
Okay.
Tomorrow is fine.
Sorry?
Tomorrow is
Tomorrow is fine.
Okay. Sounds good. So tomorrow I will be going through routing. We won't have class on Thursday because some of you guys may be doing Mahashivratri. Okay. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. We will go through routing, and I'll talk. Yeah. Bye. Good night.